my father was not a deadbeat, he was an absent father.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And I always say that's what I prefer. I prefer you to be absent. We don't take consideration the impact of history, the impact of understanding history, understanding things like colonialism, understanding things like apartheid,
Yeah.
understanding that these were not just political or economical, they're also psychological. You've got a lot of people who are educated, but they're not intelligent.
Yeah.
That's that's the problem, you know. O tlwe motho o na le di-masters, o na le di-PhD, but ha motho a bua o tlwe gore this person is devoid of
Divorce,
reality.
yes.
Yeah, he's divorced.
Yes,
Gore,
yes,
you know, it's wa bua, but there's no substance in what they're saying.
Dumelang bagaetsho ko gae and welcome back to Conversations with Madam President. I hope you are all well and good, and it's good to be back. And today we have with us here, I don't know whether to say doctor as yet, or I don't know. Vusi Gumbi, welcome to Conversations with Madam President.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for having me. We are there. We are getting there. We are working on the study, but hopefully next time I come here, it will be official.
Let's officialize it now.
Yeah, let's officialize it.
The
Now we are
work will
speaking
catch up.
we're speaking into existence. Next time I come here, it's official.
No, the work will catch up with you.
No,
I'm here
certainly.
with Dr. Vusi Gumbi.
Speaking it, I receive.
Indeed. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's an honor to have you here today.
No, likewise.
We've been planning this, and today is the day.
Yeah,
the time that
certainly.
there's been set specifically for this session. I know we are glad to have you
No,
here.
thank you so much for extending an invitation to
And
me.
I know you are busy.
Ah,
I know you are busy, and I truly appreciate the fact
Yeah.
that you were able to steal some of your time just
No,
to
we
sit
have
here
to.
today with us today and share the great things that you are doing.
no, thank you so much. And I think I had to hit the call when I was invited.
Yeah,
To say I'm going to come. Like, you know, the other great guests you've had before and join that great list.
Indeed.
You know, but yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. And, you know, it's all about also supporting this great platform that we are using to engage young people in various fields and highlighting their work while also profiling, you know, the channel, because it's a great platform for engagement for young people.
Thank you very much. Conversations with Madam President, higher and higher.
Certainly. Yeah.
So I want us to talk about you.
Yeah.
Right. The great work that you do, the impact that you are making, not only in your in people closer to you, but also in your profession space, also in your community and young people as well. So before we get into that and speak about that, please tell the viewers, who is Vusi Gumbi? And any interesting factors before we get serious? I know it's about to get serious. Any interesting factors that viewers really don't know about you that you'd like to highlight, or you know what? They just know there's Vusi, but there's another Vusi.
Well,
Tell us about yourself.
Well, I think the first thing is that I'm in an abusive relationship with Kaiser Chiefs.
Oh, okay. I was already standing up and saying, who is that?
I'm in an abusive relationship with Kaiser Chiefs. So, but I'm a very, very big Kaiser Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to that football club, I think nothing else matters between us and the football club. But yeah. I'm a great football fan in general. I believe Lionel Messi is the greatest footballer in history.
The GOAT.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, growing up, I think a lot of people don't know I actually wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a journalist, a political anchor, so to speak, a political reporter. I love news, right?
Yeah.
I switch on. I when I'm home, I change in between, you know, the media houses. I read, you know, newspapers online. Primarily because I believe that news or journalists or journalism, they're the first authors of history. You know, so growing up, I wanted. So although I did not go into journalism, that love is still there. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't know about me. You know, growing up, I saw myself as this journalist.
Yeah.
You know, breaking news. And I there were a number of people I wanted to interview growing up. You know, one of them, in fact, was the late Winnie Mandela, a personal role model. For those who don't know. I think she broke barriers and redefined the role of women in struggle. I always say that, when during the liberation struggle, liberation movements were banned, their leaders were jailed, it is that women who kept the fires burning. And for me, nothing surpasses that when it comes to the struggle for liberation in South Africa. The fact that a woman is the one who carried on the fight when men were not there anymore. And on the street, I always say, our liberation leaders were in jail, others were in exile. So they never got to be face to face with the monster of apartheid. And it was that woman who faced it and, dare I say, even defeated it. So I think, that's Vusi, but born and bred in Soweto as well. In Diutlu. So I think that's me, long and short of it.
So Vusi, I've been following you as part of doing my research. You must be very inquisitive and follow you and take some pointers. And I want to understand the kind of background that you come from, and particularly based on the fact that I always see you post your mom, right? Post your mom. That's the only parent that I've seen so far, and appreciating your grandmother and your siblings. So I want to understand the kind of background that you grew up from, and you just alluded something about Mama Winnie, and I'm connecting now to say there is something here.
Yeah, there's a connection.
There is a connection. So it's very much important that I ask that you share with us the background. The kind of background that you grew up in. It's very interesting that we go there.
Yeah, well, mama's boy. I think that's the first key. I was raised by my mother, single mother, and my grandparents, my two late grandparents, God rest their soul. So I come from a very underprivileged background. The street where I was raised, growing up, it was the only home without a wall and a gate. And then as we grew, there was just, a fence, just a fence to try to bring some dignity into the home. And generally, I grew up in a home where, there were no role models, so to speak, those type of things. And those are the conditions from which this voice was born out of. So my mom was a retail worker. She started first go KFC, Yako Fendale, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall correctly. And it was my grandparents. There was like a smaller shack, and then at some point, my mom then built like a 2-room. And for me, that's what motivated me, particularly because my father, contrastingly, was well off, right? Educated. He was, an engineer at Telkom, but he had also done a Bachelor of Education. So, as I understand, he studied back to back. So, he did engineering. And then he did a Bachelor of Education, but he went to work at Telkom. So he was well off. Yeah, married, kids and everything. So but my mom was open about it. She said, no, this is your father. And your father took a decision not to be in your life. But I'm going to be open to say this is your father in case you think I don't know and all of that. But to my mother's credit, she played both the role of a mother and a father. So conversations about the first time you are being intimate, as you are being a teenager. My mother actively played that role to say she spoke to me about intimacy, she spoke to me about sexually transmitted diseases, and all of those things because she knew that there was no father figure, with the exception of my grandfather. There was no father figure who'd carry me. And obviously my grandfather is old at the time. So my mother then played that role to an extent that growing up, I didn't even feel my father's absence.
The void.
I didn't feel the void. Even when people spoke about their dead, mentioning my mom was normal. I didn't, other kids. And I always say maybe also what helped. My father was not a deadbeat. He was an absent father. Right? And I always say that's what I prefer. I prefer you to be absent and keep
Than
your
having-
peace.
yeah,
You know, a
yeah.
deadbeat, it's like yo, sometimes you're present, sometimes you're not there, sometimes, you know.
not.
So that's why I say that better be an absent parent
Absent.
than a deadbeat, because now when you're a deadbeat, you end up creating unfulfilled expectations.
And now
Right.
it destroys the child.
Exactly. So my father was never there from day one, but I knew him. At some point I got sick, and you know, as you know, Africans, my grandmother said, no, e re ngwana lo gata ko bona."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
my mother communicated with my father to say, no, look, I know you said, you know, you're not raising this child. It's all well and good, but he's sick. And he needs just to go to a home. Ko bona ke ko Tembisa.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I was about 6 or 7. And when I walked through the gate,
Yeah.
his father said, "Owala ekhaya lo mntwana."
He didn't even have to.
Nothing, you know. But yeah, I think my mother,
Sure.
and from there, yeah, you know, that was like the first time I
Yeah.
went to his home, and yeah, until of course he reached out to me. I think 6 weeks before he passed away in 2021. So, but my mother was my anchor, the woman who, you know, next you know, and as a single parent working in retail,
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
there throughout consistently, and she redefined the role of parenthood, where she was able to talk to me about anything and be there for me and make sure I never feel that I don't have another parent.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I think we need to, not I think, I know we need to appreciate women like your mom.
Certainly.
Because when you are narrating the story, it's taking me back to the significance of a black family. Right? So doesn't matter the differences. She knew each and every family had a role to build a child. And didn't matter the differences they had, but she knew now this child needs both families
100%.
to shape him to be who he is.
Yeah.
And that on its own, it's something not many women can do. And you turn out so great.
Yeah, you know. So.
And we take for granted such,
Yeah.
you know, such decisions. Or you know what? Having both families raising a child. They usually say, raise a community, right? A village usually ke yone e re raisang. Like no one can do an independent job in raising a child.
Certainly.
It's always a community. It's always a village that does that. And we want to appreciate your mom for that, because that really shifted something.
It did, Madam President.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, whenever I talk about my mama, I always highlight the fact that, you know, most of the time, when kids grow up in underprivileged homes,
Yeah.
it's parents most of the time who dampen their spirits. You know how to go legaeng le go alena sepe.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you are not allowed to dream big. You are
That's
made
the thing.
to feel guilty for dreaming big. I remember, you know, whenever, so I was a big dreamer,
Yeah.
right?
Always a big?
Yeah. You know that advert, you know,
Yeah.
Smangmang is a big
Big
dreamer.
dreamer.
Yeah,
You
that
were-
was me. And my mom, to her credit, she would say, if you study and go to school, you'd be anything you want. And she did not let her own fears, her own maybe personal failures or shortcomings stop me or cloud her judgment in raising me. Right? Sometimes parents, I've noticed maybe with my friends or relatives, you know, maybe Monto Arem, I went to be a doctor, and then the mother would say, no, try to be a nurse, you know, because they are using the environment and their own shortcomings to say, maybe you won't get there. My mother would say, oh, you'd be anything you want. Whenever I say, yo, I love this car, she'd be like, this one is too small for you. You are going to drive even a bigger one. You know, so she instilled that belief in me. Here's this woman who only studied up until grade 11.
But she was
who's
able.
only worked in retail. But whenever I spoke about, you know, being an award-winning journalist, you know, going from my dream, I even had a trail.
Yeah.
I'd be a journalist for SABC, then I'd go to CNN, maybe BBC, go to Al Jazeera,
Yeah.
come back to the SABC as this huge, you know. And she was like, "There's nothing." She was like, "Look, I even think that you're going to be something big at the
Bigger than
BBC
that.
and all of that." So for me, she planted so many things in me, right? She never made me feel like I'm dreaming too big or I'm being unrealistic. She affirmed me, right? And I think on those bases,
Yeah.
credit on who I am, the belief that I have whenever maybe, you know, I do something, I'm like, this thing is whole, you know. Other parents, you know, they use their own shortcomings. to dampen the spirit of their kids
And limit.
them and limit their
Yeah,
thinking and their
yeah.
aspirations. But my mother was totally different. She was like, there's nothing that you can never do in the world. If you study, you believe yourself, you pray,
All things are possible.
all things are possible under the sun. And I think for now, that stood out. Whenever I, make a comparison with, maybe it can be cousins, it can be friends, it can be people from a distance who grew up in similar environments, and their parents or whoever, did not affirm them as much.
That's true.
I think for now it played a role, because if maybe my mother said, no, but wa bona mo gae mona re tswa mo family e jwang, no one has a master's in this family, no one has ever went overseas,
It was going to affect you.
exactly. But how she affirmed me is the reason why I'm where I am, and decided to take the journey that I'm on.
Let's tap into this phenomenon. Power of a black family.
Yeah.
You've highlighted so many things, and I'm writing this narrative in the mind as a black daughter of the African soil, to say, I have got power to speak life in everything that is within my vicinity.
Certainly.
You've got power to speak life into whatever that is within your vicinity or that is closer to you, be it family, be it friends, be it your siblings, your nephews, or like everyone around you've got power to do that. Now, to some extent, we have been affected by things which deviate us from our power.
100.
Right? Deviate us from the power that we have. Because history can tell. I'm not talking about things that we think can be possible. I'm talking about the things that history have proven over time, right? Speaking of, we will get into that. The great Steve Biko, the things that he have said, we are seeing them now. And we have young people like you, whom he has spoken life into. He has spoken life to a seed.
Yeah.
And we see the seed is here today. So let's bring it back to the black family context.
Yeah.
How do we build? I know we are powerful.
Yeah.
Let's not even talking about building. How do we awaken to say, hey, this is who we are? And maybe operate, but operate from our power. Because you don't need to tell me that I'm powerful. I know that I'm powerful.
Yes.
By virtue of being black, I am powerful.
100%.
How do we then tap into that space to remind ourselves of who we are and utilize that power to build communities that will raise nations that will be great? Because one child going to the nation is representing nations.
Exactly.
So how do we tap into that space?
I think if in the context of us as Africans, especially in South Africa, the first thing starts in understanding history, right? I think a lot of people don't take into consideration, especially us as black people, we don't take consideration the impact of history, the impact of understanding history, understanding things like colonialism, understanding things like apartheid, understanding that these were not just political or economical, they're also psychological.
Absolutely.
A lot of people, I think whenever we think colonialism or imperialism, we limit it to dispossession of land and resources.
Physical systems that we can see.
But I don't think there's been appreciation of tapping into the psychological impact that colonialism, imperialism, apartheid had, the invisible, what you just said, that's the key word. Right? We focus on things that we can see, the money, the land, the wealth, but everything rises and falls on the mental slavery that Africans have been subjected to since time immemorial. And I think that's the most important thing. When you talk about Steve Biko, I always reference him a lot to say black consciousness is probably the single most important cause in the history of the liberation of this country. And it's unfortunate that the leader, as life was cut way too short. At a very young age, he was in his 30s when he was murdered, brutally so. And I think that's the most important thing, understanding that, apartheid architects like Bo Verwoerd, those people studied psychology. I think he had a master's or a PhD in psychology. So they knew that
the dangerous playfield.
It's the mind.
It's the mind.
Right? And then once you capture the mind, you are able to dismantle families. Right? So you've dismantled, and I always make a reference to townships. To say historically townships were reserve labor camps, right? Where, people were there, you go there to sleep, you wake up, you go to town to work, or in the mines, or whatever the case might be, and then you go back. So those were reserve labor camps. And that's how then families were broken because, bomme ne ba dula kwa magaeng, bontate ne ba tla kamo, start another life here, live. So those were some of the ways that black families were dismantled. And you see, once you dismantle the family unit, you are done.
They knew that the family unit is powerful.
Exactly. So that is the most important thing in any structure in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Once we've got a very strong, I mean, you get it even in certain things like, running for president and all of that. They ask you, are you married? Do you have kids and all of that? So, that type of structure that
Family
grounds
context
you.
matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
What grounds you? What do you go home to? Because that's where everything rises and falls from an individual perspective. So I think the apartheid regime in dismantling the black family unit, while also making sure that they capture the minds, made it easy for the previous regimes to put people of color, Africans, in a constant state of capture, even in the democratic dispensation.
Absolutely.
It's a context. So even us as black people, we doubt ourselves, educated as we are, and this thing is not even only related to people maybe who may not be as educated as we are, who may not necessarily walk into the spaces that people like you and I walk into.
I think they call it imposter syndrome.
100%. The imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
To say, that, you are educated.
I'm qualified
you
to
are
be
qualified.
here.
No one did you a favor.
Yeah.
But somehow, you will think that you don't belong. You will think that you are not good enough. You will think that maybe, never shot one last person, but so I think we need to start having appreciation of the fact that of history.
Yes.
Where do we come from as a people prior to colonialism? What were the impacts of colonialism and imperialism? What were the impacts of apartheid psychologically? Right? Because everything starts and falls in the brain.
Absolutely.
What you tell yourself here is what you act out, even from a family point of view.
Yeah.
So psychologically, if you don't believe that a family unit is important, the
Then
black
even
family
how
structure
you-
is broken.
Yes.
You won't have appreciation of building a family. You won't have appreciation of raising kids in a decent environment, because in your mind that is not important based on historical context, based on psychological context of the past. So I think it's very important that as people we go back, tap into who we are, our roots. I always tell people, read Steve because I write what I like.
Yeah.
That's where he talks about the capabilities of Africans.
A
To
black
say,
child.
that's why he was starting things like Board King, Zenzele, Community Clinic, and all of that.
Yeah,
And the message that he was sending is that we can do it.
We can.
This is a person who was a university student at the time. He was not working, no resources.
Yeah.
But he mobilized resources, community centers. And his message was that Africans can do it. And I think it's very important that in everything that we do, we understand that everything rises and falls on
Context.
the context, mental slavery that propels us to be who we are, whether right or wrong.
Family is powerful, and I always like us to camp into this fact, because, like you said, everything that comes out of the family represents something out there. So if the structure is broken, then we'll have perpetuating patterns of brokenness. And if we heal our psychological spaces, our mindset, then we are able to produce something different. And it takes us going back, tapping on what were our forefathers seeing? What power did they tap into? How were they able to achieve these things? And we are failing because we are constantly seeking the validation in different forms.
Exactly.
We are unable to finish the course. So whatever something interesting that comes, we tap into it. When it goes, we are done. And we are jumping from one thing to another. And that thing is a very psychological impact. We don't see where it comes from. We just think, no, it's a normal thing to do. When this trend comes, I can just present it and go. Then we are never not faithful, but pushing the course with great conviction to say, I started this, I will
going to
finish
finish
this.
it,
Because
yeah.
there's no there's no example that perpetuates. So history serves there to say when you read books that really liberates our mind, you can be able to tap into where they were.
Yeah.
Although we are here, we are wounded, but we are able
Yeah.
to heal ourselves and say,
Exactly.
I'm a black child and I'm powerful. And saying it without having to prove it. I don't need to prove it. I'm saying it,
yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, I don't
don't
have
need
to
to
prove a point
explain.
to anyone. This is what I said. There's this meme that says, I said what I said.
We need to get there
Yeah,
to say,
yeah.
I'm a black child and I'm powerful.
Yeah.
I don't need you to explain what I have. Having has got nothing to do with my being.
Yeah,
So that family unity plays a very important role. And then I would like to read this quote, right? And we are moving to your education process. It says, to educate the masses politically cannot mean making a political speech. What it means is to try relentlessly and passionately to teach the masses that everything depends on them. That if we stagnate it, it is their responsibility. And if we go forward, it is due to them too. That there is no such thing as a hero that will save them with his magic hands. That there is no famous man who will take responsibility for everything, but the hero is the people themselves. And the magic hands are finally only the hands of the people, Frantz Fanon. I close quote. Now, as bearers of possibilities, right? As curators of reorientation, as custodians of narratives, we have an important role to play. Like you said, we need to dismantle, those psychological weaknesses that we have that is stopping us from tapping into our power. Looking from, because this is affecting not only the black family, but how we participate in the economy.
Yeah.
Now, how do we position ourselves to reclaim lost territories in the economy as black people? We heal the mind, but how do we then position ourselves to reclaim the lost economic territories as young people? And probably using the context of, Soweto as a context, locations as a context, or there is power there.
Yes,
but then how do we tap into them to reclaim those economic territories?
My argument has always been that you can have the brightest minds in the room.
Sure.
If those minds are divorced from the material conditions of other people, then you are fighting a losing battle. This is what we call the political and sociological imagination. Malaika Mahlatsi made reference to it about 6 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And it has become something that I embody. And the argument that I have made, because I even presented it at a number of places, that for example, you are an educator by profession. We do not only need educators who can teach how to read and write, but educators who understand that education for black child is the greatest equalizer against socioeconomic ills. All right. So we need lawyers who do not only defend the law or interpret the law, but who understand that maybe in the context of a transforming country like South Africa, sometimes meaningful justice comes from rewriting new laws, right? So we need doctors who understand the sociology of health. You talk about Soweto. So you do not only need a doctor who will do clinical assessments and surgeries, but understands sociologically the environments in which they operate in, right? So that's the most important thing. And what affects us as black people is that we separate ourselves from the material conditions that affect other black people. So I made reference earlier, Karim. Go high when I grew up in Hosna Lebota, in Hosna Gate, right? And obviously with hard work and whatever, managed to change that situation. I always make a joke, hake director, but no, go high. Utla bona ke na ka strata fela ke le bota le leng le brown fela le nice ba le penti, know. But just because go high khona le bota it doesn't mean the issue of magae as nang mabot hasa exist.
They exist.
They still exist.
Yeah.
So the problem that we're facing, and it goes back to, mental slavery. It goes back to mental capture, where we separate ourselves from the material conditions of others.
Just because in
right?
the past we believe
Yes.
the problem is solved.
Exactly, and that's the biggest problem to say. And once we are able to get to a point to say, yes, I'm educated, but it doesn't mean education is not a problem.
Absolutely.
Yes, I went through varsity, but it does not mean university fees are not expensive.
They are.
Right? Yes, I'm working, but does not mean unemployment is not
not
a
a
pandemic
problem
in this
anymore.
country. And that is the most important thing, right? Where I work and then I'm able to afford a nice apartment, I'm able to drive a decent car, take my kids to decent schools, and suddenly, matata a leng hore ama ordinary South Africans no longer affect me. No, ke shebela ko tlase like this.
So that's why we lose the cause.
That's where we lose the cause. Once we understand that your own subjective achievements, progress in life, does not mean it substitutes the socioeconomic conditions that the majority, then you understand that I can still be educated, but still say we've got an education crisis in this country.
And we stay the cause.
Yes, we stay the course. Even though those problems, and someone, Chief Justice Mogoeng once spoke about scholars in particular.
Yeah.
Are African scholars write about African problems? Are you too scared to write about African problems? Write about African solutions. And that's the problem. Where even maybe checking academia, we don't even have a lot of radical scholars. We don't have a lot of radical academics who, talk into socioeconomic conditions. So that's one of the major problems. Once the grass is greener,
Now I can no longer stay the course.
Now I can no longer stay the course. It goes back to you when you're saying it's because we do not have an appreciation that I am because you are. Yeah, we don't have an appreciation of that. We individualize things, our achievements, there's this actor, Jet Novuga. There's a famous clip, I don't know which interview he was at, and then he said, in African culture, there is no black tax. He says, but he said in Xhosa to say each and every family has what we refer to as umnyulwa. So meaning that someone who will say in that family will come.
Yes.
Right? So, but now the problem is that, and most of the time, if I start forgetting even the sacrifices that we made.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't even have to be a big thing. Right? But for us to get where we are,
just
it's
holding
not
space for
exactly.
you.
It's not because we're better than others. It's not because we're hard. It's because some people in our journey paved the way for us. We might have seen it, we might not have seen it. It might have been material, it might have not been material. But the most important thing is that in order for us to reclaim spaces, whether it's land, whether it's the strategic sectors of the economy, whether it's epistemological disobedience, like changing the curriculum so that it reflects
the
African
context
people,
of African reality.
100%, right? We have to understand that we cannot separate ourselves from the material conditions of Africans in particular, and the fact that it starts here and then broader into the continent. So that's the most important thing. And so for as long as we've got, I tweeted the other day, Gary, make me Minister of Higher Education and I make the cost, sociology. Compulsory for all degrees, doesn't matter whether doing science, education, engineering, but just to have everyone for a junior degree. Everyone, or how is that engineering, how the mathematics, everyone will be studying psychology until the end of your junior degree, right? Because sociology is the study of human behavior, understanding why societies are the way they are, understanding why human beings react the way they react to certain things. And you've got a lot of people who are educated, but they're not intelligent. That's the problem, Utlwe motho o na le di-masters, o na le di-PhD, but how much this person is devoid of reality.
Yes,
He's divorced.
yes.
It's but there's no substance in what they're saying.
They
But
can't
there's-
relate with the
exactly, but they've
realistic-
got these qualifications and qualifications, So I was, it was a joke, but I was like, if I were to be a minister of higher education, so because as South Africans, we need to understand why, because again, it's not every black South African who's born into underprivileged. Others are born into privilege.
Yeah.
And they go on to occupy strategic sectors of the economy. Maybe they become doctors or lawyers or social workers. But if they do not understand who they are first and who other black people are, then it makes their impact very limited to only professional impact, but not societal impact. You can have a professional impact, like when academic, you can publish and whatever. I always make in academia, there's this thing, you publish or perish.
Yeah.
So you must publish. And I
Or
always
perish.
say, but why are you saying people, who reads that material? That's the most important thing.
They can't have access to it because they need to pay something for them to access that material.
So you can publish hundreds of things, but the most important thing is that the target audience does it get to them?
Yeah.
Do they read this material and all of those things? So Luana, you can be the world's most famous doctor, but if your impacts are if your successes are only measured only through professional successes, but not societal impacts, then we've got a problem in terms of transforming this country.
That's a very powerful statement that you've, and it awakens all the professionals to say, our work is not done.
Yeah.
Especially a black child.
Yeah.
Our work is not done. Just because I've arrived at a strategic position, it's a privilege for me to influence.
Yeah.
Influence, decisions that actually favors and considers the reality of a black child.
And I'm sorry to cut you, especially you're an educator, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important professions.
Yeah.
And even me, when I look at educators in my journey, I was a problematic child, right? And when I look at the educators who were there with me, I'm like, these people understood. I mean, I could read, I could write, but I was also naughty, right?
And you needed to be grounded.
Right? And I still have my grade 6 class teacher, Mrs. Lamina, I still have her numbers till this day, right? And then go high school, teachers like Bomema Lokotsa, Bo Miss Nkuta, Miss Nkuta recently retired, Bo Miss Mafishi, but she passed on, now she's late. Those are people who grounded us, especially go high school. I remember I almost got suspended, matric, 3 weeks before writing. Yes. And Mema Lokotsa stood up in that meeting and he said, your punishments cannot be punitive. They cannot be retributive. This is a child. Yes, punish, but you punish restoring the child.
Yes.
You punish building the child. You want to suspend the child. You are saying the child is not writing. You are breaking a child. And it's not as if he's passing.
He's passing.
He's doing well. She stood up in that meeting and she said, I'm not going to allow it. She said, I'm not going to sit in this meeting and said a child must not write final exams. What are we doing here?
And we are
in
the
that
ones, as once you don't understand the effect of one going down.
Exactly.
You won't understand the broader effect to say it takes one child going 100%. Down or going astray and leaving them and thinking, I don't care, it's not my child. And you don't understand the bigger
ripple
picture.
Effects.
That's the thing.
So when she was in that meeting and she spoke, it was a big thing, my friend and I, we wanted to organize a trip without the approval of school.
You're very problematic.
We wanted to organize a trip without the approval of school and all of that. The IDSO, it was a big thing.
Sure.
And then Ms. Malokosa stood up and said, I'm not going to sit in a meeting where you are going to say a child is not writing final exams. Where's the restoration? Yes, he's a child, he made a mistake, but don't be retributive. What are you saying about his future? It's 3 weeks before the final exam. So I'm just saying, that to say she knew her role was not only being a teacher, but also being a mother, so to speak. Being a parent, being a caregiver, so to speak. To say, no, my duty is not only to teach how to read and write, but my duty is also to build, to
To
instill,
raise the seed.
100%. So I was just trying to make that highlight, especially in the context
Yeah.
of you as an educator.
Yeah.
To say it's also about, education is the greatest equalizer. Yes, we can teach. There are many people who can read and write, but it's also instilling that knowledge, planting the seed,
Yes.
So yeah, but I just felt it was important to make that context, especially seeing that Madam President is also an educator by profession.
Shout out to the educators. We are well represented. Vusi,
Yeah.
I would like to tap into your space of work.
Yeah.
And before we get into the space of work, let's track back from the Spacia High School, how you have nurtured the gift that today is putting you out there. You are able to serve the nation and make impact. And I want us to talk about the journey of High School. How has that journey built the Vusi that you are? Mentioning, now we only saw the highlights one daily. But it didn't start there,
People don't forget that.
One day it didn't stop there. And for an African child, not only an African child, seeing you there, and so confident, representing yourself. Because I always say, you did not only represent you, we are part of you. We are like, he's one of So you see the power of representation
exactly.
and multiplication. We multiplied. We were Vusis at that time. We were Vusis at that time. But then I want you to highlight, where did this Vusi come from? Because now we only saw, the blooming Vusi. You bloomed, you were there. But there were people who were busy tendering the seed, taking care of it. Like you mentioned, your teachers, the role they played. If it wasn't for that, I'm sure you would have went astray. But
100%.
we thank them for being able to be visionaries, to say we can't allow this to happen because there's a bigger picture ahead, and we stand up for that. How has that? We want you to tap into people who played a role in who you are today, and tapping into every stage of the great highlights. One day leader. We just saw you, Malawi, Pan-African Parliament. I want us to tap into that. So please take us through that journey.
Oh, wow. I think especially high school, because I think my high school made me. Shout out to Fons Luminis Secondary School. I think the first highlight, I think a turning point or, a point that became like a catalyst in my life. So I did history ko sekolong. And my history teacher, because also that appreciation of, I love history. I love writing. I used to love writing essays and all of that. Part of the reason I wanted to be a journalist, right? And grade 11, my history teacher was Miss Mkwanazi. I think now she's at Freedom Park High School. One of the people also played a very, very major role. So during history debates, during history classes, I would debate. Right? I would, engage passionately, and all of those things. So talk. And so we have holidays in South Africa. So there was Human Rights Day, 21 March. So obviously, because 21 March is a holiday, so we commemorate it the day before. And then she comes to me, she said, no, I've selected 2 or 3 matriculants just to deliver addresses as part of Human Rights commemoration, but I'd like to include you. And I'm like, but ma'am, that's so much pressure. I'm the only grade 11. And and Goskolung Sarona, matriculants wear white shirts. The rest is blue.
So I'm
the odd one out now, And he was like, you are passionate about this. Please don't disappoint me. And I remember I spent 2 days just trying to, write the speech, and I take public speaking very seriously. It's one of the things that I believe that God gifted me with, to speak to people. Not to deliver speech, but to speak
to people.
And I remember I was asked to be the first one, was Nakili grade 11,
You're the young one.
These ones, they have to be. Hello, that was my first public speaking. I delivered that speech. I remember the matriculant was coming after me. I don't recall her name. She said, because we just said the bar. And, the applause that I received at assembly, and then people started whispering, maybe he should be the president next year. Maybe he should be the president next year, And then followed by the following month, it was a Freedom Day.
Yes.
But that one, I was the only speaker. He was like, I'm making you the only speaker. Miss Mkwana, as I delivered the speech.
No, shout out to her.
And that was, the first public speaking engagement. And because growing up, I've always been like a lively child, those type of things. I talk, very talkative. And when then the following year I'm elected as an RCL president. Here's this kid, what's
Gate.
now he's like, an RCL president, and I'm leading the learners at school. And when these things happen, I always say that one small achievement leads to the next.
Yes.
So that speaking engagement made me RCL president. I now start attending things like Gauteng Youth Parliament. I get to see other learners from other schools,
Exposure.
other municipalities. And I'm like, okay. So the decision now not to study journalism, I go to at the time, remember ko gae mo ke tswang teng. There's not even a laptop. Ne ke qena ka di-computer tsa ko sekolong. I don't even know how to apply. I have to go to internet cafe, but I'm like, I don't want mistakes. My mother, like I said, she's like, no, I'm taking you. I'm going with you. She takes a day off. We go to Wits first. We started at UJ, Banting campus. We arrived there. They said, no, the Student Enrollment Center, we can go to APK. We went there, seeked advice. Now I want to apply. And then I did the applications with my forms. So I applied for journalism, politics, and I think law. And then we went to Wits again. So this lady, Wits, who worked at the Student Enrollment Center, she asks out of curiosity, why do you want to, what was a journalism first option?
Yes.
Because we politics and then law. But next, so apply. I'm just seeking advice. I love news, I love journalism, politics, current affairs. But you are leaning more towards politics. Study politics, you can always venture to journalism.
Because you've got a broader sense of...
I don't know. So journalism, you don't have to study journalism directly. You can venture and go back into journalism one day as an anchor, or whatever. Study politics, I then apply for policy. I don't apply for journalism anymore.
Yeah.
Then come January, at the time NSFAS, 2000, we don't know. NSFAS, you are applying it at the campus or submit or whatever. So because Negula Dimploof, so to campus UJ was closer. So woke up there. So NSFAS then when it funds me go UJ. So I'm accepted both, right? I'm like, no, if I'm going to UJ, I then go to UJ. When I go to UJ, I fall in love with politics. Concepts like democracy, governance, institutions.
That history is coming in handy.
That history is coming in handy.
Consciousness.
And then it's my first year. There's an organization called ISA. They say they are celebrating their 20 years. They call on young Africans in undergrad to write essays on democracy and the future. I see it. Our HOD at the time was Professor Susie Graham. She sends it to us. Go you link. So here's an opportunity you can write. At the time, first I don't even have a laptop. If I go, I have to go to campus. Go D-Labs, the computer, I go there. I submit they said you submit an abstract.
Yeah.
If it's good, then you are shortlisted to submit the full essay. I do it there, I submit, and then I get contacted about 4 years later. No, you should write the full essay, submit by this date. And by the grace of God, I won.
Amazing.
I won. And they say, no, you can come and present this essay at our symposium. We'll be celebrating 20 years. The current president, President Ramaphosa, was the deputy president at the time. So my mother, who nurtured me, she had never seen me. She works in retail, work. And I said, I'm taking you with me.
Can you
I
please
want
go
you
with
to
me?
come,
Yeah.
and the deputy president will be
Will be
there.
there.
There was the former president of Nigeria was there. Good luck,
Sure.
His Excellency Good luck, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You had the former president of Mauritius was there. And I remember when I stood there, the deputy president was front row. He was delivering the keynote speech
Yes.
that day. And as soon as I was done presenting, I'm doing my first year. I'm from Soweto, and just last year, 12 months ago, I nearly got suspended. I'm not right. 12 months
Examination,
later,
matric exam.
12 months later, I'm standing in front of this audience where there are former heads of state, there's a deputy president of the country. When I got a standing ovation, my mother cried. Yeah, she cried. She was like, I don't even know what to say. I said, no, I wanted you to come and see your son.
The seed that you've been nurturing, I need you to see the work that you've been
exactly,
doing.
And because ISA is now so impressed, they invite me the following year to say, come, let's go and do an election observation, go Lesotho, as part of, an international observation team. They invite me, 2 years later, 2019, let's go to Mozambique. Let's do another election observation. And now, I start falling in love with these concepts again. They are reignited of democracy, of governance institutions, And as a result, I then say, no, okay, I'm going to write my honors around democracy, accountability.
You're inspired now.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to focus on what? The electoral system of South Africa. Because why? I've been to election observation missions. I've wrote this essay about democracy in Africa, and I say, can I write to the department? The department, how it's on us,
Yes.
Then, because it's on us, they'll just say, okay, this one aligns more with this one. So I think in our department, they made a mistake. They gave me Professor Giorgio at the time, and he specializes more in IR. So I then approach him. I'm like, hi, at the time he's doctor. I said, Doc, can I speak to you? He says, yes. I'm like, not, please don't take it as an offense. I saw that they've recommended you to be my supervisor, but my topic, it's more, domestic issues, political, democracy, elections. And I feel like Professor Lechana is more
relevant,
suited. And he said, I was thinking the same, but I didn't know how you would receive it. Sure. I'm glad that
you were able to come.
See it, I then I sent an email to the HOD to say, no, I'd like Professor Ndechana to be my supervisor, whatever.
Yes.
In fact, I even said in the email, it can either be Professor Ndechana or Professor Enichikwana.
Yeah.
Ndechana himself responds and says, hi, Susie, I'll take the student. And that became the beginning of, even now,
great things.
Master's was him, PhD, he's the one supervising it, And these small building blocks are the ones that now take me to one day leader, right? Where even how I applied, because by the way, a lot of people kept telling me, there's this show where SABC one, apply for it.
Apply for it.
Imposter syndrome, ever fit.
Sure.
Again.
And you were able to overcome that syndrome to say, this time I'm going.
Yeah. No, it was not even that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, even the previous seasons, I'm like, no,
I'm not there.
I'm not good enough.
Sure.
And I remember, I'll never forget this day. It was December 2019. I'm sitting at home. I get a text from a girl called Bongiwe Msezane.
Yeah.
We've never spoke. She was at high school in Nikizakwana Fonts. So, when you are Facebook friends with people, she sends me a text. Hi, Vusi, hope you're well. There's this program here, One Day Leader. I hear that, can you please apply for it? When I check your profile, whatever you've done, please apply for this program. I was like, no, God, maybe this is a sign.
Because someone out of the
that
blue.
Is the person. Because around, I guess sometimes people around you, they won't be maybe too honest. Maybe they'll elevate you, even maybe it's not yet the time. But when someone I didn't know,
who was out there, far from your circle,
sure. When I went online, Barikwala today, and I said, you do understand how this thing works today? I'll just apply.
Everything else will follow.
I said, no, God is a sign.
Yeah.
And The rest is they say.
One day later,
You know?
I figured we became your community. And then
Yeah.
you see the power of you
Yeah.
being able to overcome this the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Imagine how many great minds, particularly black youth out there who are saying, I don't qualify. So when you did that, everyone saw themselves, then I can do it. There was no
Exactly.
space that was bigger than me. I was able to say, I am going for it. And going back to that, building up to the Pan-African convener, the third one that
Yeah.
happened in
In
9
Midrand,
of...
yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to talk about the opening dialogue and leading to your PhD work that you are doing, because it is more aligned. And when I read this quote of the opening at the president of the Pan-African, he alluded that, let me quickly read, I open quote, our call for reparation is not a cry of victimhood. It is a demand for justice and self-determination, a call for Africa to speak with one voice and act with one purpose, to correct the injustices that have shaped our past and continue to affect our present. How is your work speaking to this?
You know, funny enough,
Yeah.
when I was actually invited to speak at one of the breakaway sessions.
Yes.
And when I got there, it was speaking about, you know, young people and their role in the changing dynamics of in Africa. And I said something very simple. I said, in this continent, everything will rise and fall on regional integration. Kare, for as long as there's no regional integration, if we will meet here at the Pan-African Parliament again 15 years from now,
We'll still be
it will be other youth, Kawan will no longer be youth. They'll say the same things that we are saying, because the problem with our continent, it's not ideas. It's the fact that countries operate in silos.
And we need to be integrated.
So we're not integrated. They go to the African Union in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. Their declarations, you know, they are ratified by member states, but they're not enforceable in individual countries.
What do you think is the challenge that we are
It's
failing so
it's
much?
that integration that I'm talking about, where all these 54 countries on the African continent operate in silos. And it goes back, you know, when I was saying individually
Yes.
about the sociological imagination, divorcing ourselves. Even African countries do that, where because South Africa does not have a problem of instability. What's happening maybe in the DRC is not.
We don't care.
Just an example. Obviously, we do know that South Africa
Yeah.
has spent money, you know, soldiers and all of that.
Assisting.
But the problem across the continent is that these member states of the African Union, they divorce themselves from what's happening in other countries. There's no regional integration on this continent. I mean, I was even in that the Pan-African Parliament in the breakaway session. I argued to say there was the African Youth Charter, right? It was adopted in 2006. But 3 years later, in 2009, only about 15 countries had ratified it. A charter
Out
that
of
said
50
out of 54.
4.
A charter that said young people must be placed at the center of governance, of you know, democracy, of leading this continent. What does that mean? The fact that only by 3 years later, only about 15 countries.
out of
Obviously, now it
54.
has been ratified, and
Yeah.
I think almost all of them now. But the fact that it only by 3 years, only about 15 had ratified it. So the lack of integration of African countries, where we operating in silos, that's the most important thing. We've got great policies around migration, around what is this, repatriations, around, you know, economic stability, you know, domestic resource mobilization. There's, you know, a gentleman I met in the US, Prince Mobindu, he's from Zimbabwe. He works around domestic resource mobilization to say African resource must serve Africans. But we don't speak in one voice, right? And I can give you a typical example. Right now with the ongoing issue of Palestine, African countries don't speak with one voice. Look at Europe.
Where we should be standing up and saying we are Africa and we are saying
this. Europe speaks with one voice. On any issue,
it's one voice.
It's one voice, right? That's why you even have, it's basic things. Like, you know, in Europe, there's one visa, it's a Schengen visa. You know where. So, and one of the things, Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, was once speaking to, I think it's President Paul Kagame of Rwanda,
Yeah.
where he was saying, it's easy to travel in Europe than it's in Africa.
It's difficult.
Because in Africa, if I want to go to Southern Africa, maybe visit all these countries, I have to apply for 15 different visas. In Europe, I only apply for one visa. I get entry to any country in Europe, right? So that lack of regional integration makes it difficult for countries to even agree on issues like repatriations, issues like economic development,
Yes.
issues like peace and security. We know there's a coup now. I just can't recall the country at the top of my head, but there's a coup now somewhere, I think, sub-Saharan Africa. But the issue around other countries are condemning it, other countries are celebrating it. You know, so it's one of those challenges. You know, that's why in Africa we're not void of challenges, of solutions. It's like in this country, you know, solutions galore. In this country, political will none. But in African continent, everything rises and falls on that regional integration. Countries coming together and speaking with one voice.
I believe that we will reach that.
Certainly.
'Cause
it's up to you and I.
Your track record, you've been staying the course. And I'm truly inspired that your journey shows that you stayed the course and you continue to stay the course. We are talking about your PhD work. and you still stay in the course and you putting Africa there, for me, it's one of the things that inspires me the most, to say, continue to stay the course, Vusi, because the seed that you are leaving, I believe there are many Vusis coming.
Yeah,
you know, there are many Vusis coming. When you stay the course,
hopeful,
it's a pathway to say, Vusi stayed the course, I can stay the course.
Yeah.
We have this, I don't want to say unique, but this supernatural resilience to stay the course and come out of it victorious. So I believe that Africa is victorious. We are talking 100%. About it as a problem now, but next time we'll be talking about it as a point of victory, to say we are one. Yeah. All 54 countries, we are speaking with the same language, and for the favor of Africans, speaking about the context of Africans. And every policy, every interest should favor our context first as Africans. And I believe that we will get there.
No, 100%.
We will definitely
100%.
get there. Vusi, before we close, to your teachers that you've mentioned, you know, I cannot leave my people.
Yeah, the educators.
Please, I cannot leave them. To your teachers who played a role, and I believe it's many years back, but you still remember the impact they made in your life. What do you say to them? And you can mention them by name. Yeah. And lastly, to your mom, you can say a little message to her.
Well, to my teachers who've guided me, held my hand from primary school, Miss Dlamini, grade 6B, Iganeng Combined School. Thank you so much for guiding me. Bought me my first ever book called Breakout by Joel Austin. He bought me that book in 2014, a book that has grounded me, also strengthened my faith. Thank you so much. And when we met, it was long after I had left primary school. Thank you for being more than a teacher, being a mother. High school, Miss Malokotsa, MB, Miss Nkuta, Miss Mafishi, God rest her soul. Thank you for paying for my first passport when I had to travel. The three of them, actually. Miss Malokotsa, Miss Nkuta, and the late Mafishi, thank you for your love, your support. When I was in high school, I know I was also problematic, but you held it down for me, and I appreciate you in every sense of the word. You have redefined what it means to be a teacher. Miss Mkwanazi, who first gave me my first public speaking engagement, and that's the reason why I'm here today, the reason why I can speak boldly, in Washington, D.C., knowing that 10 years earlier, I was at Fons, and had you not instilled that in me, I would not had the courage to pursue public speaking. And, and all the teachers that have played a role in my life, one way or another, I really appreciate you because you planted a seed. You understand that yours was more than teaching me how to read and write. Yours was to instill, the power of knowing me. And to my darling mother,
yes,
in Zalabantu, Zodwa, Gumbi, I love you so much. I don't think any words will suffice in terms of explaining how much I love you, how much you mean to me. If it was not for you, Ma, I wouldn't be here. you motivated me, you've inspired me. And Wangjing is ukuthi, it doesn't matter where I come from. What matters is where I'm going. What matters is the conviction that carries me in my dreams. And thank you so much. I love you.
Now I'm celebrating teachers. They are holding it down. May we continue to build the nation. So Vusi, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and sharing this knowledge out there. And you have planted the seed to hold it down until the end, to stay in the cause. We are going to stay in the cause until to the end. Next time when we have a conversation, it will be a different one. It will be about victory.
100%.
So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I think we are done. Time has moved so quickly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thank you so much. I hope you're going to enjoy this, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye.